So let's dive in. So I want to talk about the difference between letting your client results market for you or only marketing for yourself. I feel like I hear this kind of split all the time. And I actually think it's really important to talk about in the sense that, like, in some ways, that's like what I have to say about the mini course. Like, I'm always like, be such a great coach that, like, your work speaks for itself, your client results market for itself. Like, the way you're going to grow and scale your business is having client results in that way. And I believe that fully, but I also feel like, of course, that's like what do they call it? Like a snippet or like a bite-sized version of a bigger conversation. And so that's why I've been excited to have this conversation for a while, because I think what people can do with that sometimes is misconstrue it and take that to mean, oh, then I don't have to market myself if I get my clients results. And it's also not that. And I feel like that's why we have to have this conversation. And or the opposite is true. If I'm great at marketing, it kind of doesn't matter if my clients get results. Also not true. So I really think, like, just not like playing on either end is so important here. And I'm gonna like talk through exactly what that looks like and how we can do that. But I feel like, sometimes we can get a little too like our brains will grab onto something. You know what I mean? So we're like, oh, if I just give my clients great results and I don't have to do the thing that's uncomfortable for me, or vice versa. Oh, if I'm just really good at marketing, then I don't have to worry about the thing that's uncomfortable for me, which is like really getting in it with my clients. And I think that these just become excuses. And the truth is, if you're a great business, you're great at marketing and you're great at delivery. Like, any business, not even just a coaching business, like any great business is good at both of those things. You know what I mean? Like, can you think of any business that you love and are obsessed with where you're like, yeah, they're really great at marketing moves, like so when you have an experience with them, or vice versa? Like, yeah, they're like totally shit in everything they do, but like at least I have in everything they present, but like at least I have a good experience. I mean, maybe that's a little bit more likely, but for the most part, like both matters. Hi, Michelle. Good to see you. Hi, Alyssa. Great distinction. Okay, good. Yeah. So if you guys have questions along the way, obviously let me know. But we'll just kind of dive into some specifics around this and we'll go from there. But if there's anything that comes up for y'all here, let me know. Um, so I think let's just start with this. Like, the idea that your results don't matter to your clients is BS. Of course, what kind of results you're getting matter to your clients. The idea that your client results don't matter is also BS. Of course, the results your clients are getting matter. And again, I think we just get so quick to dismiss one or the other based on what our own stuff or our own mindset stuff, our own biases, or our own fears are. Um, I hear too many people saying, hi, Denise. Oh, you didn't miss too much at all. Thank you for being here. I think that I think there's like this interesting thing where, again, it's like sometimes we take one concept and it's like, that's true. And there's so much more to it that we miss online. So, like, I think the idea that like you do not have to have better results than your clients and all of that is true. I have many clients that make more money than me. And I don't think that it's a requirement that I have better results or what, insert whatever that means, right? That I make more money than them in order to be able to coach them. At the same time, though, it does matter to them that I not only can help them get results, but also get results for myself, that I show up, that I walk my talk, that I'm an embodiment of the things that I talk about in practice. And I think that gets really like misconstrued too, where it's almost like, oh, okay, like my results shouldn't matter to my clients at all. And I don't think that's true either. You know what I mean? Do you guys hear what I'm saying in that? Like, I think there's such a way in this space where it's like, so one way or another, it's either like, I should never talk about money. I should never have to share my results. I should never have to talk about me. All of this other stuff should speak for itself, or vice versa. And so I just wanted to say that because I obviously am such an advocate for get your clients great results, focus on that, use that in your marketing. I mean, that has truly built my business. But I have also been really, really honest and transparent about my own results, my own experience, my own journey, my own progress along the way. Then I think that's equally important. And so I think like this can be frustrating news for a lot of people because I think sometimes we latch on to the idea that like, okay, it's just about client results. And like in some ways, yes, but if they can't feel you, connect with you, see you, understand you, like, of course they don't want to work with you one-on-one too. You know what I mean? Right. So like, I think a lot of people, of course, hire me because they see that I help my clients get great results, but they also hire me very, very, very much because they feel a connection and relationship with me. And like both of those check the box together. And I just feel like that's so obvious, but it's not something we see or hear all the time. And so again, in launching the mini course, I'm like, yes, it matters so much. Like give great service, get your clients results, feel amazing as a coach. And like that does not become like the opt out of like market yourself, share your heart, let people see you and feel you, you know? Denise says, yes, it's very black and white. I think there's a balance that we can find that feels good to us. Totally agree. It gets so black and white. Shantae said, oh, yes, the embodiment piece is very important to me. I didn't think it was, but I had an experience where I didn't witness an embodiment. And so there was an incongruence for me in being able to relate to them in business, even though they were a good coach. Does that make sense? 100% makes sense. Like, my clients definitely don't care like, oh, I made 200K this month and Lacey made 100K or whatever. Like that's not even occurring to them. But if they were like, oh, you're totally incongruent to how you show up, or like, oh, you talk about this, but you're this, or like, oh, your message is about being a really supportive coach, but I don't see and feel that from you. Like that's where it gets weird. Or like, you ask me to do things that you're also not willing to do. And obviously, we're going to have people do different things than us. Like, but I think like your clients want to see that you're willing to stretch and get uncomfortable and stuff like that too, right? And I also think, to be honest, your clients don't want to feel like, how can I say this? They don't want to feel like they're entirely responsible for your success either, meaning like, yes, their results can give you great feedback, great testimonials, great evidence of being a good coach. But I don't think any of my clients want to feel like, oh, well, like we're entirely responsible for making sure like Lacey stays in business because obviously Lacey doesn't do any of her own marketing or anything to keep herself in business. You know what I mean? So I think that's a whole thing too. Like, yes, let your client results speak for you, but you also don't want to like feel like that's the only thing they got going on because that doesn't feel good either. Shantae said, yes, exactly that. Of course, it may be different, sure, but if it's not happening at all, it's kind of odd. Like weird is the best word. It's not objectively bad, just weird. Right. And to me, that's the relationship piece we're talking about, where you just like, I don't quite know you, and which makes it hard to trust you. And if I can't trust you, it makes it really, really hard to listen to you as a coach. And I really think it's that. I think so many people that kind of rely on the just let your client results market for you thing don't build that trust with their audience in a way that makes it really easy and obvious. And then that gets hard because then if they hire you and they don't get perfect results immediately, they're going to be pissed because that's the only fucking reason they hired you. Instead of like, they hired you because they trust you to see them, support them, be in it with them, be in it for the long haul, help them get results. Like it's like a whole package versus like, well, I just know you got so and so results, so I'm hiring you. Like, wouldn't we all rather it be like, I know you got so and so results, and I really resonate with your content, and I think you're a fantastic coach. Like, right? Of course, one is going to give us a much better connection, much better relationship, all of those things. And so that's kind of on the one side of like, yes, let's have client results, but let's also like be in integrity with like how we show up and share about them, how we talk about ourselves, or I mean, how we talk about and embody them ourselves, all of those kind of things. Yeah, both and makes so much sense here. Exactly. That's so I feel like that's just the gist of every live. Like y'all could just stop coming. That's pretty much the whole point of every single one of them, right? But it's true. But I think it was really important for me to personally share that because I am such an advocate of like, let your client results speak for themselves. Like, yes, do that. But I always like want to be clear that there's like other sides to this that don't always get shared, talked about, whatever. And I just think like, especially with like talking about the mini course more and everything, I was like, it's so important for me to share from this angle since I take such a stance for how important that is. And it really has been so important. Like helping my clients get great results for sure has been what has grown a lit up life, but it's not the only thing that has grown a lit up life. And I think it's really important to say that too, because I feel like that's such an easy way to stay stuck. Hey Shannon, good to see you. Know, like, and trust is huge, but and the nuance of speaking to who you are is vital. Totally. I mean, I think especially when we're thinking about high touch coaching, whether that's like a mastermind or one-on-one or whatever, like someone's gonna want to feel like they can divulge to you and know you. I think it's a lot like therapy. Like if y'all have been in therapy or worked with multiple therapists, like yes, you want them to be great at their craft and all of those things, but ultimately feeling a connection with your therapist is so crucial. I talk about this in the mini course. If you guys don't know this, you can download module one for free. So if you're not ready to dive in and buy, you can get module one for free. But um, what I talk about is how important relationship is and how that's so well studied. Um, from a therapeutic standpoint of like when we actually look at like what gets people results in therapy, it's not about what type of therapy, it's not about the tool, it's about the quality of relationship between therapist and client, right? And if you really think about that, that's so fucking important. Like, because it applies to coaching. Like, of course, that's not been studied in the same way, but of course, it's the same, right? So if we're saying, like, okay, my results should just speak for themselves, like, yes, and the quality of your relationship with the person you're coaching is going to be the biggest impactor in their ultimate results. So if you're not also showing yourself and letting them see you and feel you and talk about yourself and share your journey and share your results and share your perspective, like that relationship is not going to be as strong and you're going to have a whole other set of issues, you know? Shantae said that is very true. I mean, these live streams by themselves speak to that. Like, yes, Lacey gets her clients separate results, and also she shows up here each week, both in. Oh, thank you, Shantae. Yeah, totally. And I think, you know, it's not like all of my clients watch like every live stream I've ever done or anything like that. But if they want to get to know me, there's a clear and easy path to do that. And I think my podcast, my live streams, they support my current clients too, because in session, I'm maybe not like telling them all these things about myself, but they still get to know these in other ways. And I think that's really important too. So it's not even just for um, like client acquisition, but it's also for what it means to your current clients too. So I think that's really important to say because I mean, of course, that's part of supporting your clients is continuing to help them build off that relationship with you. And them getting to see you, feel you, take in your perspective, that kind of stuff in ways that, like, of course, you're probably not doing fully in a session. So I think that's really crucial to remember too, is that as much as it is for client acquisition, it's also part of building that relationship with your current clients. Um, Rebecca said, my best coaches truly saw me. I've had coaches who technically knew more about business than my best coaches, but my results were just not as good as with the coaches where the bond was strong. Totally. I just could not agree with that more. I think all evidence, all research, all anecdotal experiences like fully support that. And I feel like it's crazy to me that we don't talk about this more. Like, crazy. Anyway, I could go on and on about that. This is not the moment for that. You guys, I just have to bitch about this for 2 seconds because it's driving me crazy. I got my ring size because I've lost weight this year. And so I've been wearing a ring sizer and I finally went and got it sized. And the jeweler was like, you really should go down another quarter size from what you're telling me. And I'm like, no, because my fingers swell sometimes and I don't want to. And this fucking thing is just swirling around. You guys know I talk with my hand all the time, and he was 1000% right anyway. So I'm just sitting here thinking about how annoying this is and how right he was. And I'm gonna have to go back and be like, hi, you were right. Can you fix it? Anyway, thanks for listening to my rant. Denise says, yes, it's not just the tools, but the relationship. I feel a lot of people rely on their proven process. And when a client isn't getting results, they tell them they aren't following the process or they would be getting results. It just makes me laugh. It's so stupid when you think about it, right? Versus being in a relationship with a client, helping that individual client find a process that works for them. I think like what I always think about with stuff like that, Denise, and I just so appreciate you saying that because I'm laughing because I'm like, of course it doesn't work like that. But also, I feel like so many of us want safety. We want certainty. We want things to be black and white. I am a craver of that for sure. I'm a recovering control freak, you know, depends on the day, but recovering control freak. And I crave, that's why I fucking love data. Because it's like as close to certainty as I know we can get, right? But what I'm trying to say here is I feel like we crave the idea that life works like that. We crave that, like, oh, there's just a proven process, and if you follow it, it has to work. And I feel like our brains, our nervous systems, like all of us want that to be true in the fucking chaotic world that we live in so bad, but it's just not. And I think that's what's hard is like we want to buy into that because we want it to be fucking true. You know what I mean? But yes, just so agree with that. Um, I so related to your story in the mini course about assumptions made about you by a therapist. Then there, it's our job to be deeply present for the individuals. That is a sacred gift, but also makes marketing trickier sometimes. Maybe just me on this. About assumptions made about you by a therapist. It's our job. I'm trying to think of what I shared about that. Was I talking about how that therapist told me I was a people pleaser, or am I talking about something totally different, Shannon? Tell me if that's what you mean, because I want to just make sure. But thank you. Yes. And I think it's so true about like being able to be present, but that's what makes marketing really hard. Like I definitely identify as like shapeshifter in many ways where I feel like I can like really shift into like what does a client need in this moment in this session. But like you're saying, Shannon, that can also make marketing really difficult because um you can't do that in marketing. Like you can't do that for everyone. And so I think it can be really disorienting sometimes because you're like, well, this is my skill set over here is that I can like shapeshift and support and whatever. And how does that apply to like, you know, it's going to reach thousands of people or whatever. Um, no, it's okay. It was the therapist who knew what you were struggling with here. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay. It's so funny because I was like, I totally don't remember telling this story, but Um, it's so funny because I was thinking about the opposite, which maybe I've never even told this story, but I will now because Shannon has brought it to my mind, which I so appreciate, Shannon. Thank you. But I kind of had the opposite experience where I went to a therapist when my father died. So the first therapist I started with when my dad passed away. Like we get on a call, and like, you know, I know the game, right? Like I've been there. I feel like most of the time a first call in therapy is just like finding out more, just like getting curious, like starting to build a relationship. And just like very quickly on the first call, she was like, oh, you're a people pleaser. It's this, it's that, da, 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 da. And I was like, okay. And I like really try to go into therapy and stuff with like a very open mind and heart. So I was like, wow, this is so wild. I've like never seen this in myself. Like I don't identify with people pleaser. That's never been a thing for me. Maybe I've been blind to this whole time, all this stuff. So I'm like, I asked my husband, I like talked to Sarah, my best friend. You guys probably know her. I talked to Sarah. I talked to like many of my other close friends and I'm like, okay, I got this like really interesting feedback. I think maybe it's something I'm not seeing. And everybody was like, no, babe. Sarah was like, you are many a thing. People pleaser, you are not. And it was like the point I want to make there is like what was so interesting and why I never went back with her and ended up switching and getting another therapist that I had a really, really, really beautiful relationship with is she just did not take the time to see me, understand me, and build the relationship. She obviously had preconceived notions, or I said one thing that like triggered something in her that made her think whatever. And in one session, she was like, this is your whole problem, like moving on kind of thing. Um, and I think that's what we do with the proven process thing. Like she probably works with a lot of people pleasers, or she probably thinks like most of the women that she comes in contact with are XYZ and there's a process and she takes them through it. And it was just so interesting to be in the midst of that. And I'm so lucky that I'm pretty grounded in myself where I didn't just take that on and go, oh, okay, this is my work to do. I was like, maybe let me stay open to that. I'm also really lucky that I have like a great network that I can go to and ask that and be like, is this something I'm not seeing, you know? But I think that's the connection to that idea of proven process where it's like we just assume so quickly sometimes we're like it's just this and if it's not this you're wrong and it's like maybe we got to look at ourselves and be like what's making me resist this process or maybe it's fucking something else and like the only way you know that is if you ask the right questions if you get in relationship if you actually coach so anyway I feel like I've gotten a bit off track in this but I think that that's like the whole kind of point here is excuse me. Yes, you need to have a way to help clients get results. It is typically based on your ability to connect with them, which you need to still do in your marketing, even if you're getting clients great results, which you need to do in your courses, even if your marketing is great, like same fucking same, right? Oh, thank you, Shantae. Great parallel. Denise said I struggle with marketing my offers because I don't believe in selling a proven process, but the writer and marketer in me knows the human brain wants certainty. It always wants certainty. It's so true. I think what I always try to think about in that, Denise, is like where I try to give my clients certainty is in my way that I will show up for them. Like I want that to feel like the one thing they can count on. This is such a, I'm just going off on all the tangents today, but I'll just give an example there too. Like one of my clients, like I give myself to-dos in base camp when a client asks me to review something and I do not know what was going on, but for some reason twice with this client who has been my client for years, I did not see like in my list of to-dos her to do, and one of them was actually like quite important to her and I just totally missed it. And it's fine. She knows me. She knows my heart. We have a beautiful relationship. We've worked together for years. But to me, I'm like the one thing I want them to be able to count on and know with certainty is how I will show up for them. So I was like, I'm giving you a session for free. We're adding a session onto your package. Like, I want you to know I will always show the fuck up for you. And if I didn't, I will always make it right. And so, yes, we might not be able to give them certainty in a process, but we can give them certainty in us. We can give them certainty in how we will show up for them, how we will make things right if we get it wrong, that kind of stuff. So I think there are ways to create certainty, but yeah, it's not as sexy as a proven process is the truth. I mean, I think that's just unfortunately real. Like it's just not as good, but I do think there are other ways to lean into it. Shantae said because it could have been easy to then start identifying as that if it really wasn't your truth. Thank goodness you're a network for sure. 100%. I mean, like that could have been like life altering in some ways, which is kind of scary. And I think like I did this live stream a while back. I am sure you guys will kind of remember it if I jog your memory on it. But we were basically talking about like we have to remember the weight that we hold as coaches in this way. Like one thing we say to someone can really be internalized in a big fucking way. And we have to pay attention to that. And I think that's what you're saying here, Shantae. Like when you go into like a therapeutic container or coaching container or whatever, and someone makes like a statement about who you are and your identity, you have to be very fucking careful not to take that on fully because the weight of that is so intense. Like right. And we have to be careful with that as coaches. I think we have to really recognize the power that we have around that. And that's also where the proven process thing gets a little fucked because it feels like this person that you trust is telling you that this identity is possible for you. And that identity feels really, really, really good and really, 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 really sexy. So we want to take it on. And again, it's just like so interesting how much of it is mindset and identity stuff, right? And I think it's the same with this conversation around marketing is like, do you identify yourself as a marketer? Do you identify yourself as a great coach? Do you identify as someone who really cares about their clients, et cetera, et cetera? Like those are important identities that we have to take on to do a great job at on both of these fronts. Um, Yes, exactly, Shantae. We hold so much responsibility. Yeah. Shannon said, yeah, the power we hold, it's so big. Denise said, thank you for that. That opened a lot for me. And the truth is I have high referral and renewal rates because of the way I show up for my clients. Thank you for saying about certainty is how we show up and not the process. Yes, yes. Oh, good. I'm so glad that helped. Um, but yeah, it really is like, it's so the weight is so big, but I also think that that's why the marketing, like I really try to think about this. So like, let's talk about the other side of this coin. You have a responsibility, I think, if you're a great coach to try to get good at marketing because if not, they're out there hiring other people who are great at marketing and maybe not great at helping them. And so I think that's really important. Um, like it really does become a responsibility of like, can you stretch in terms of how you show up, how you share, how you engage, and again, it does not have to mean sharing your whole life or all your numbers or whatever. But if you're not willing to share any of that, it signals that it's hard, like I shouldn't trust you or that you have unresolved stuff there. Like if you're not willing to share about your own business, how can I trust you to support me in mine? Again, it does not mean that it has to be sharing like all your financials or your P&L or whatever, but like take us along with you. Tell us something, like if you are great at this, how can you own that? And I think that's so big. I see so many people trying to do great work, but then shying away from the great marketing. So that's the first piece. The second piece, which is obvious. Oh, let's see. Shantae says, and a good coach or even therapist to continue to bring it back to what is objectively true versus what someone else may think is true. Does that make sense? Like a proven process can work, but it's also customizable to the person's truth. Yes, that's perfectly said, Shantae. I love that. Shannon said, oh my God, so true. The good marketers get hired. We have to learn to market powerfully. Yeah, totally. Because if not, they're hiring someone else. Like they want the support. It's really like, are you going to be able to market in a way that, shows them why they should work with you or not? But again, there's the flip side of the coin too, where people only market their own results and they think that should be good enough. And they're not looking at client results. They're not even caring about client results. They're just like churning as fast as they can because they're good at marketing their own results. And I don't even mean this in terms of like, can you say that you helped one client get a result? Like everybody has a unicorn client they can ride the wave of, but like, are you consistently getting people results in your program? Are you consistently helping people really make a difference? Like, I think that if you're only relying on your marketing, your business has a shelf life. It really does. Because you can be a great marketer for quite a long runway, to be honest. But that will always catch up with you. There will always become a point where your great marketing cannot outweigh the idea that people do not get results in your program. Like there's always a tipping point. It might be a year, it might be 2 years, it might be 3 years, it might be 4, it might be 5, who knows, right? But there's always going to be a tipping point with that. Like you have seen it over and over again in the online space. I have been in the online space for 8 years at this point, and I have seen it again and again. There is always a point where someone has their shit catch up with them, right? Where it's like they've been a great marketer and sold people into a program for years, but now they have enough people that are saying this program is not supportive or helpful, and the person, is not responsive to feedback around that or whatever. And the tides turn and they turn really, really fast. And someone who is just great at marketing, I think, can sometimes get almost like a God complex of like, no one can touch me, but trust me, that's not true long term. For a while, it might be, but it's not long term. I feel like, it always comes out in the wash. Is that what they say? Maybe that's not how the saying goes. I don't really know, but it really does. Like it will always catch up with you. So you might be able to be a great marketer. I mean, listen, you could be a great marketer and make great money for 4 years and then it catches up with you. Like maybe that's not a problem for you. But I do think that that's true as well. The problem is, I think that we kind of condemn either side, depending on which one we're on. We're like, oh, these people aren't making money because they just need to be better marketers, or vice versa. We're like, these people are scumbags. All they care about is marketing. When really, like, what we kind of need to do is see the good in each of it. Like, wow, she's such a good marketer. And I know I have such incredible delivery. What if I was marketing more like that? What if I was learning how she like makes those hooks or how she shows up and I was then applying it because I'm already getting people great results? Or vice versa. Maybe I'm like, you know what, to be honest, I'm a fantastic marketer, but I'm like hit or miss on delivery. Like, awesome. Like, go learn that. Go get good at that. Like, both are good. Both are important. And I just think that like vilifying one or the other isn't always great. I mean, definitely I don't like stand by the idea of someone just being like, oh, like here are all my results, now work with me and get them, and then not delivering on any of that. But I also don't think we want to vilify great marketing. I think that that's such an easy thing to kind of like pick out and poke away at. It's sort of like the debate in our space of like not talking about money and how like people don't want to hear you talk about money, blah, blah, blah. Like I am so vehemently against that conversation. I'm like, yeah, people don't only want to hear you talk about money, but like if what you're selling is how to help people make more money in their business, then fuck yeah, you need to be so quick to like vilify one or the other. Or like I'll hear the opposite. Like I'll hear great marketers be like, just get your program together, just do it so quickly, like throw it together. You don't even have to have an outline before you start selling it. And I'm like, well, that's not fucking true either. But again, I think we're just so quick to like take those sides, right? Yeah. Um, oh, Rebecca, I thought I saw something from you and then it disappeared from me. Maybe you're just rewriting it, but I just didn't want to miss it. So tell me if I did. Um, excuse me, but it's like I really think we can like learn from both angles, like if you're like, man, I'm so great at delivery, but I'm really struggling with marketing, don't lean so hard on delivery that you feel like you shouldn't have to market or vice versa. If you're so great at marketing that you feel like you can like ride the wave and not have to worry about delivery so much, trust me, that wave crashes. Don't get so complacent there. Actually focus on delivery. Like it's sort of like a data thing, right? Like know what you're great at, leverage it more, tweak what you're not, and fix that. And that's when you're going to have the most success as a business owner. Neither side of this coin works by itself, right? Yes, it might work in that you're great with clients, so you get some referrals, but you're always going to feel uncertain and on edge in your business because you don't know when the next referral is coming from. Or again, yes, it might work that you're great at marketing, excuse me, and so you get a lot of results, but you're always going to be wondering when the next person is going to complain about um, whatever the experience they had or the thing you promised and didn't deliver on, etc. Rebecca said, oh, you had added. Okay, good, good. I love the reframe about both kinds of coaches. What are your thoughts about the clients that have a bad experience with someone who's better at marketing and then is gun shy to trust a new coach? I mean, in a situation like that, I'm always like wanting to know what the bad experience was and how we can help them see that differently. Was the bad experience that you didn't do your research or like you didn't like hire a coach that was aligned to your values, or maybe you bought from someone who was teaching a process and you don't even actually agree with that process or whatever. Like I would always want them to get more specific. Like anytime someone feels like they're kind of like wronged, I feel like it's so easy to like blanket that, like, oh, I got tricked or I had a bad experience. And I think sometimes we have to go back to that like ownership of like what actually happened so I can trust myself to do this again. Like what actually happened is, I bought into a promise that of course couldn't have possibly been true. It was that I would never have to do anything hard and the money would fall out of the sky and whatever. Like there's some ownership in that. And not that the person on the other end doesn't have responsibility for having that marketing, but I really do think that when we can own like why we would have made a certain investment or why that investment wouldn't have worked out, I think it's when it empowers us to make a new one. So I would always be like curious to go deeper there with them and find out like what really happened, because sometimes it's quite simple. Um, like I had a client that had that experience, and like when we dove into it, it's like, yeah, it's really simple. Like you thought that this seemed like the magic pill. Do you know what I mean? And it wasn't, and that's okay. And so how can we process like there's not a magic pill in business and what does that feel like? And again, not that there's not responsibility on the person who's not selling a great course, but I also think that um ownership of our part in that is always the part that we can own, or always the part that we can feel empowered around. Shantae said my biggest mistake in business was the first, leaning more on the results than I did the marketing. And now I'm trying to solve for the marketing piece. So like very true. And it's one of those, what I wish I took into consideration sooner. Yeah, totally. Ownership. Yeah, it's totally Rebecca. If you are lopsided, you end up with an unsustainable practice, which can create resentment. If you feel like you should have the other side, confidence in delivery marketing that flows, beginner's mind isn't easy, but yes, beginner's mind, totally. I think that's it. Like Shannon, I was saying that about reels recently where I had to like take a beginner's mindset and I had to be like, okay, like, yeah, I'm 8 years in business, but I'm like new to this. Like, who can I learn from? How can I get support? How can I let myself look stupid? How can I try this out? And it's like that shifts so quickly. But I do think like in any of these cases, like if you need to lean more into the marketing, like, yeah, you're going to have to be like, okay, this is me stretchy as fuck. How can I do that? Or if you have to lean more into delivery, you might be like, wow, I'm like really used to holding my clients at arm's length and not getting in it with them. It's going to be super uncomfortable. Or like, wow, we'd have to rework a lot of the program to be more results oriented or whatever. Like it's always going to be stretchy. But when you go there, it's like not only do you make your business better, but you make yourself trust deeper. And I think that's really cool too. Um, the season with Angie is a good resource on this too, especially in the beginning around her experience, if you recall what I'm referring to. Yeah, Shantae, exactly. So Angie had like a terrible experience with someone who was great at marketing and really, really failed on delivery. And Angie was very open about calling that out and asking for a refund because she was not delivered something she was promised on, et cetera, et cetera. And it really turned into like a whole thing. And I think that's an example of someone who, like, just because you have good marketing, it doesn't mean you get to fuck with people. It doesn't mean you can like sell shit that you're not delivering on. No matter how great you think you are, that's going to come to the surface, you know? So, yes, totally. I think that's right on, Shantae. That was a very good example of this. Yeah. Um, and I just think like people get overwhelmed so easily. It's almost like, oh my God, I have to like deliver great results and show up and talk about myself and market them. And it's like, yeah, that's why like this stuff isn't as easy as everyone makes it out to be, you know? And I think that's so like interesting too, because I feel like people are almost like so put off by that idea in our space of like, yes, you would need to like really care about results and deliver on that. And like, you know, you have to market yourself. Like the idea that someone has to do both, I feel like people genuinely get pissed off or resentful about, and they just think it's like too much. And I get that because it's a lot of work to run businesses like this, to really serve people, to really show up, to really market. Like it's not easy. But I think it's almost funny how much our industry makes that wrong, or how much we have these like visceral reactions to that when it's like, that's a business, right? You have to market and you have to deliver results. And it's hard when you're a small business and one of you has to do all of those things. Don't get me wrong. But at the end of the day, it's true, right? So I think that's helpful to like land it too. Like if you're feeling triggered or resentful about that, like you got to go back to basics, because that is just business. It just is, right? And so if you're like, I should be able to run this business without that, it's fine. But again, it will have a shelf life. Like, yes, referrals are good, but they're not going to scale you in the way you want. Yes, it's good to be great at marketing, but without being able to deliver on something that actually gets results, like you have a short timeline related to that. So I think it's just really important to see both of those things and be like, why are we getting mad about these things? And if we are, it's okay. It's not no like shame or guilt there, but it's like that's what we have to really look at and dig into, is like, then it's a mindset thing. It's not like a business model thing. It's like what in your brain is telling you that this is too overwhelming to do, you know? Shantae said how I coached and supported Angie through that. Thank you. Yeah, like now I have to run a business. Exactly. At least on the marketing results are so easy. It's the marketing for me. Yes. Denise said, I think there's resistance to that because there was a lot of marketing for a while that glamorized a coaching business as being easy and you can always be in your flow. Totally. Totally. I think that I like it's so interesting because I really buy into the idea that like we can create ease in our businesses. Like I feel so much ease at a lit up life. And I also really, really show up and do stretchy things and hard work and all of those things. And I think you're so right, Denise. Like it kind of got positioned for so long as that it's only good if it's easy. It's only good if it doesn't take time. It's only good if dot dot dot, and like that can be such a mind fuck. So when somebody's like asking for both of those things from you, you're like, this can't be right, and of course it is. um Shanti, I think on the marketing front, what I would be like so curious about there for you is like what actually makes it hard, like when you sit down to do it, because that might be like, you know, the first and best place to start. You probably, I know you do a lot of self inquiry, so I'm sure you already know this and you certainly don't have to share it here, but I always think that's so helpful. Like, you know, when I talk to clients, I'm like, okay, like what makes it feel really stretchy to think about like redoing this program so that we have like great service delivery? And it's usually something like the idea of everyone like needing things from them or counting on them too much, or it's like all this boundary stuff. And it's like, okay, amazing. Let's look at how creating this program can actually help you have better boundaries and be like less needed, because you're giving them so many things and so many containers in which to access that in a simple way. So anyway, I think same with marketing. Like it would be interesting to see what that is so that you can like find that solution slash reframe, because it's probably there. Um, yeah, I think like for me, I recorded client stories on this. Maybe I'll share them tomorrow, I think. Let me write myself a note. Where's my notepad? I client lesson tomorrow. I recorded stories on this that where I was talking about basically like um how one of the blocks for me when I was like getting into reels and more visibility in that way is that I really like to go deep. You guys know that, right? Like I have a lot to say. Hey, Sveta, thank you for being here. I like to go deep. I have a lot to say. I don't like fluff. I don't want to just be like giving you this like surface level thing and then like no real value behind it, et cetera, et cetera. And I really had to shift my mindset around that to be able to fully lean into reels. And I realized that was probably part of what was keeping me from fully leaning in there is because I just had this idea in my head that like it wouldn't be deep enough or it wasn't true to me or it wasn't in integrity or it wasn't really real value. And what I have realized since doing it, what I really shifted in the process is realizing like it's actually how I can build the relationship and then provide deeper value, just like I would in a regular relationship. Like I'm not just going to meet someone and like go deep with them immediately and divulge my whole entire life. Well, maybe sometimes, but like in general, that's not like the only way to form relationships, right? Like I might meet someone at a party and chat with them and like have a really great exchange and then like want to get to know them more and then we like hang out again and like it evolves over time. And so making that shift for me of like, oh, okay, this is a way I can start to build the relationship. It doesn't have to be the entirety of it. Has been really helpful and helped me lean into that. So anyway, just saying like I think there's always these things that come up with us or these stories that come up in terms of like why am I feeling like such a thing here? And sometimes it's just actually like much easier fix than it seems. Um, the good thing about being obsessive with self-inquiry is I have the answer that I just specificity when marketing something that has a non-specific result. When I feel like I'm finding my groove and getting specific with both mindset and strategy data to help find the sweet spot, it's getting there. I love that. My brain is pinging with this reminder, super helpful. Yes. Yeah, it is often easier than it seems. Yes. So you're saying like having to get specific with a non-specific result. Yeah. That's such a good one. Like, I'm sure there's so many edges to play with around that, but it's like so helpful that you're like, oh, this is just where it's hard for me. Right. Like, okay, interesting. I could just like really lean into that instead of like marketing as a whole is hard. Right. Wait, can you have relationships with people where someone doesn't divulge their biggest like secret on day one? I mean, I hear this, Michelle. This is what I'm told. I don't know, but this is what I'm told. But I do think it's like helpful to be like, yeah, of course. Like, I don't need to like tell them every single thing they could need to know in their business on day one. Like, I could just like make them laugh first, and then we could go from there, you know? Yeah, you don't know that like either. I know, right? But it's like so funny how it's like, oh yeah, easy. I could reframe that. Um, Shante said, right, exactly. That's like half of the work so far, taking that mindset with me this week. That's my one thing to focus on. I love that. So good. So that's the takeaway. If you're leaning too much on thinking client results are like the only thing that will grow you and scale you, you have to think about the relationship. You have to think about continuing to build that relationship with your one-on-one clients, having a way for them to see you and feel you and grow with you and vice versa. Like great marketing only goes so far and it can take you a long way, but it won't take you to long-term sustainability if it's not backed with like results and delivery. And again, these are just the essential components of growing a great business. And I think just like getting back to basics and recognizing that is so important. So I hope that is helpful. If you want the mini course, remember any comment today, you're entered to win. If you just want to download module 1, lituplife.com/mini course. And let me see if I can just throw that in here for you. And otherwise, I love you guys and I hope that you have a beautiful week. Yep, I can. I'll just throw it in here really quick. And I will be back next week to talk to y'all. All right, bye guys.